All right, we're going to give you a little football talk today on the Locked On Syracuse podcast. You may be thinking, football, what's that? It's been a while, but Syracuse, Louisville coming up on Saturday. Orange still one win away from bowl eligibility, and this might be their best opportunity. We will dissect all of that coming up in just a little bit, as well as get you our picks, as well as the prop shop. That is coming up next.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into the Locked On Syracuse podcast. I'm Tyler Aki here with Tim Leonard. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We're free and available on all platforms, and that includes YouTube. We didn't get our 250 before tip-off, Tim, but we're still going for well, let's go 250 before kickoff this week. It doesn't have the same ring to it, but maybe we'll get there. We're getting closer and closer. This episode of Locked On Syracuse brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. All right, so we get into some football stuff. I just want to start with this, okay? Because 5 wins right now. 1 win away from bowl eligibility. You've got this game on the road. You've got NC State on the road, a ranked team, and then you've got Pitt at home, another ranked team right now, 21-25 in the most recent college football playoff rankings. Is this Louisville game your best chance at securing bowl eligibility the rest of the way?
It probably is, yeah. I think because Louisville and Syracuse in a vacuum are pretty similar teams. Yeah. Louisville has also struggled with closing games this year and fourth quarter struggles and stuff like that has driven the fan base nuts. And they're coming in.
So has Syracuse.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying also.
Yeah, very similar.
I mean, Syracuse has 5 wins right now. Louisville is also trying to get into bowl eligibility, and they have some winnable games. I think they have Duke left, and then they, of course, close the season against Kentucky like they normally do, but Kentucky's a pretty good team. So being 2 wins away, they kind of view this as a must-win for bowl eligibility. It might be more of a must-win for them because Syracuse does have a home game against Pitt, and I think those 2 teams remaining after this, NC State and Pitt, are tougher than Louisville. They're still winnable games, though, in my eyes, because it is the ACC, and Syracuse has been in every game in ACC play.
You know, you bring up must win. I think it might be more of a must win for Syracuse because that Duke game seems pretty cushy, I think, if you're Louisville. And it's weird because you might find yourself, you always hear about the look ahead situation, right? Where, Clemson's next week, and that's the big game next week, and you're not focused on the little opponent this week. It might be a look-ahead situation for Louisville with Duke on the horizon saying, you know what, we just got to focus on Duke. We know we can beat Duke if we're firing on all cylinders and if we're executing the way that we know how to. So who knows? Maybe this is their trip-up situation and they're almost looking ahead to Duke because that'll set them up in prime bowl-clinching eligibility situation right there.
Right. Well, they need 2 wins too. So you think of it like, even if they get Duke, it's down to either getting Kentucky or Syracuse for that 6th win. And I think obviously Kentucky is a better team than Syracuse probably this year. Maybe not by a huge margin. They can still beat Kentucky. But the other thing that you have to factor in when you consider is the Syracuse's easiest test left is Syracuse is coming off a bye this week. They've had more than 1 week to prepare. Malik Cunningham is a little banged up potentially, although I think it's not going to be a huge factor in this, but he got hurt at the end of the Clemson game. Satterfield, the head coach for Louisville, seemed to make it sound like he was going to practice in full on Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe was a little limited early in the week. But in general, like, he's maybe not tip-top 100%. He's maybe somewhere around 90% going into this game.
You brought up the bye there. And that's something that Syracuse has struggled with under Dino Babers. 9-16, but that record is largely cushioned by the 6-1 that they went after the bye back in 2018. So without that season, they're 3-15 off the bye. And a lot of these games actually haven't even been close, too. A lot of blowouts in that stretch as well. So, and this is a weird bye, too, because it's coming at a really late point in the season. You only have 3 games left, and obviously some injuries and some transfers to note as well that we haven't really talked about, but you're not going to have Traver Pena. You're not going to have Latari Kinsler. And Pena's the interesting one because of what he does in special teams. I know he's out there as a receiver from time to time as well, but I'm more intrigued by what Syracuse is losing in special teams. Is it going to be Courtney Jackson that really steps up? I don't know. But we saw Pena. He's flipped a couple games. And I think about that Virginia Tech game. He had a couple of big kick returns that really helped this team. And he's had a couple throughout the season that have really helped this team.
Yeah, it's interesting because Courtney Jackson has the one return for a touchdown that came last week when he was replacing Pena. But you're right. I felt like Pena was really, if anything, underrated on what he was giving the team. Carlos Vettorello is the other injury. We now know he's pretty much out for the year, according to Dino Babers in his press conference this week. So offensive line, I was reading something today that they played 9 games. 5 times they've kind of had a different offensive line lineup. This could be number 6 in terms of a starting lineup, because the question now becomes, without Vettorello, is Darius Tisdale healthy? And if he is healthy enough, do you put him at right tackle, or do you go to what you did at the end of the BC game, which is put Dakota Davis at right tackle, which he hadn't ever done, at least in an actual live game, but he looked decent. And Kalen Ellis, who has been forced to play a lot of time in the middle there, has actually looked pretty solid. So it kind of becomes, would you rather have Tisdale or Ellis out there? And the other question is, how healthy is Tisdale? Because he's been banged up himself. So the offensive line is not in a great situation, but at the same time, they haven't been in a great situation all year. They haven't really been protecting Garrett Schrader great all year. It's just a lot of fans, I feel like, think we've made a lot of progress there because Schrader is better equipped to handle the pressure.
And Matthew Bergeron's played pretty well too on that left tackle side. He's been one of actually the best in the conference in terms of not allowing pressures on the quarterback. I will say this, your question that you posed, would you rather have Tisdale at right tackle or Davis? It's a pretty easy answer for me. I'm going with Dakota Davis every day of the week, and I'd much rather see Kalen Ellis. Listen, I haven't been impressed by Kalen Ellis this year, but it's a lot better than what I've seen out of Darius Tisdale in his time with Syracuse. That's for damn certain. So I would much rather have that lineup on the offensive line. Looking on the other side at Louisville, Malik Cunningham worries me because Syracuse, their losses this year and even some of their wins, they've struggled against some of these mobile quarterbacks. Malik Cunningham's another iteration of that here. I know some people have thrown the Malik Willis comp. I don't think they're very similar comparisons, to be honest. Malik Willis is a much better thrower of the football than Malik Cunningham is. But Malik Cunningham, I mean, he's dangerous with his legs. Luckily for Syracuse, though, they've got some good linebackers that have been good tacklers this year. And I saw PFF had a stat about like the fewest missed tackles. Syracuse is among the best in missed tackles. And that's really the reason why this defense is worlds better than it was last year, is because last year it was missed tackles left and right. This year, that has not really been much of a problem for them.
Right. They're also getting to the quarterback. I think it's 3.76 sacks per game, which I believe last I looked on the NCAA stats is 4th in Division I or FBS. So think about that compared to some of the recent years. That is a really good rate. Now, Louisville does have a good offensive line. It's probably the best part of their offense and one of the more underrated units, maybe even in the entire conference when you look at offensive line specifically.
Second best in the ACC in sacks allowed.
Right. And that's, I think, it's kind of an interesting matchup for Syracuse because you think about that for Syracuse's defense. Their strength has been getting to the quarterback. Louisville's strength has been protecting Malik Willis and not allowing Malik Willis to get sacked. And also that's because he's a dual threat guy. Then you flip the field. Louisville's strength on defense has actually been stopping the run for the most part. They haven't played maybe a noteworthy back, especially up to the degree of Sean Tucker.
I'm at the point now where Tucker's matchup proof. It doesn't matter.
Agree. But just laying it out, if you were to pick a strength on Louisville's offensive line, if you were to pick a strength, I'd say on their defense, it's definitely more run defense than pass defense, which it kind of lines up with Syracuse's strengths a little bit. But I'm with you for the most part. Sean Tucker is run all over Clemson, with the exception of Rutgers when he just didn't get enough carries. He's gone over 100 yards in every game. So I expect him to do that again in this game.
I'm with you right there. And looking at the offensive line too, I think part of it is also Cunningham's ability to run. That probably prevents some sacks too. And that'll be a tough task for the Syracuse defensive line. There's a couple times this year where, you saw whoever BC was throwing back there at quarterback. You saw Burmeister back there at quarterback. Those are sacks for you against a quarterback like that. But are they going to be sacks against someone like Malik Cunningham? Probably not. I imagine Syracuse's sack numbers to be sort of sliced in half in this game. But it'll be a fun matchup. That's for sure. You've got two offenses that can certainly score, and it might come down to whose defenses, or it might come down to a couple turnovers here or there.
I
And
know.
you
Keep
look at
waiting on that,
Syracuse.
right? It's crazy.
Yeah, and Syracuse hasn't gotten really. They've gotten the one big turnover that I can think of this year, and it's the one against the forced fumble against Liberty that won them the game essentially. And then on the other side for Louisville, they don't get a lot of turnovers, but they can pick you off. They have what is it, 9 interceptions this season, which
Yeah.
is one of the best marks in the entire country. So they do a pretty good job in that department. So Garrett Schrader probably can't get away with some of the flimsy throws that maybe he has against other teams this season.
Yeah, it's really puzzling, the lack of turnovers on both sides. The fact that Schrader maybe hasn't thrown more, which I guess is a byproduct of just the fact that we run the ball so much compared to other years. But also, Syracuse's calling card for years has been turnovers, and they're getting pressure on the quarterback, as I just laid out, the number of sacks. So you think with a higher rate of pressure, like Malik Cunningham is a guy that I don't think is a great thrower on the run. So even though you might not sack him in this game, maybe you lead him into some bad decisions, and that turnover could swing a game here that is basically a toss-up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's going to whoever gets the big turnover in this game, because I think there will be one, because both of these quarterbacks maybe haven't turned the ball over a ton, but I think both are
though.
Yeah, exactly. They're both
right.
I'd have to look at and see what the turnover worthy plays count is on both of them, but they both have racked up a fair share of turnover worthy plays this year and have probably been on the lucky side, if anything, for both quarterbacks. All right, we'll get our prop shop picks as well as Debundo's digits and analytics report for you from our guy Anthony Debundo at the Action Network. That's coming up in just a little bit. But this episode of Locked On Syracuse is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teams, competitors, the home team or the road team can come to recharge. It's the place you always look forward to stopping on at a long road trip home to rest your legs and refuel. You can if you're ever going back after a Syracuse game, the Erie Boulevard, great spot. You got two, one going one way, one going the other way. You can't miss it. The Golden Arches up in the air. That was Tim and I's go-to spot after games back when we were in college. So head on over to your local McDonald's to refuel and reconnect and get yourself some fries, McFlurries, dip the fries in the McFlurries. McDonald's, I'm loving it. Prop shop time. Let's get into it here. A lot to go through this week. It feels weird. We haven't done a football prop shop in quite some time now.
We don't have to say the record also. There's no
Okay, we're not going to say the record?
Records.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Boy.
I mean.
Oh, boy. Yeah. We'll just say, like, it's been long-term memory loss, whatever.
Yes,
it's been a while. So we forget the records. Is this a rivalry game? Can we call this a rivalry game? Because then you throw the records out the window. Every week between me and you is a rivalry. So we
haven't talked about this yet, but they're honoring Lamar Jackson at halftime. That feels intentional to me. His jersey's being retired at halftime.
Well, did you see too what's going on? It's like initially they were going to do a blackout, and then they were going to it's also like a military appreciation day too. So they wanted like some sort of camo. And then the university just came out and said, "Yeah, just you know what, just wear whatever the hell you want. Like, just wear whatever you want."
That's great.
So
they just gave up.
I know Mike Rutherford was having some fun from that. He might be the best Louisville follow on Twitter. Cards Chronicle, he's great. All right, let's get into it here. PrizePicks sponsoring a lot of these. You can get them on PrizePicks.com. We'll start with Sean Tucker. His rushing yards in this contest, they're setting it at 117.5. That's a pretty big number. Sean Tucker entering the week second in the nation in rushing yards behind Kenneth Walker. 117.5. Where are you sitting?
Well, he also needs just 106 yards to get the single season record. So I would put that on watch. I would say he gets that record. It's Joe Morris's longtime record, which is pretty remarkable that he has a very good shot of getting it with what will be 2 more games left on the schedule after this. I would say he gets over just because, as we talked about earlier, he's kind of matchup proof in my eyes. And I do think, well, Garrett Schrader is not much of a threat to pass. Louisville's pass defense not being great makes it so that they can't totally just sell out on the run like other teams, like a Clemson. And I know Clemson, we still ran for a couple big plays. Also, Debundo's going to lay this out, but Louisville does allow a lot of big plays on the ground. So if Tucker gets free, I mean, that's 150, 60-yard run, then he's well on pace to do it.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to go over here too. I'm just going to keep riding the overs on Sean Tucker until it severely burns me and I feel bad about it. Like, there has been a couple times where we've gone over, but I haven't felt bad about it. I'm just going to keep riding it. Right logic, wrong pick stuff. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball here. Syracuse sacks over under 2.5.
I'll say they go slightly over. I'm kind of torn on this one. I laid out that 3.7 number. Louisville, as we said, has a good offensive line. I'll put it this way. If they get to 3 sacks in this game, I would say it's a very good chance Syracuse wins the game. So I'll lean at 3 sacks and slightly over.
I'm going to say they're going to feel like they had 3 sacks in this game if it was any other quarterback in the country besides Malik Cunningham. So for that reason and that reason alone, I'm going to take the under. But they're going to get in the backfield, I think. But I think you're going to see Cunningham get through some of these sacks and not let them. They'll probably end up with 2, slightly under.
Okay.
That 2.5 number that you set. This one's off of PrizePicks. Garrett Schrader passing touchdowns, an even 1. They're setting it at. Are you over or under that projection?
I feel like this could be a similar to Virginia Tech game for Garrett Schrader, where he actually, he's coming along as a passer already, coming off a bye week where maybe you can incorporate some new plays. And Louisville just gives up a lot of big pass plays. I was surprised to see this number at 1, and I think his PrizePicks over-under for passing yards is somewhere in the neighborhood of 170 as well, so you could even dabble in that too. I think he goes over both of those and probably ends up with 2 passing touchdowns in this game.
Do I get credit, like a bonus point for saying even?
Like if you say
like
1 and hit 1?
I just think it's going to be 1.
Yeah, you can go for that.
And,
I'll give you like $200
well,
instead
all right,
of $100.
Cool. All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to go even here. I think it's going to be 1. If anything, I would probably slightly lean under because it feels like all of his passing touchdowns are big plays. They're hitting Trevor Pena in stride. They're the Damian Alford play. Everything feels like it comes from outside of 25 yards with him when he's connecting on a passing touchdown. And that's the right call. I mean, him and Tucker are such assets in the red zone with their legs. There's no reason to air it out and risk a turnover. We've seen them turn the ball over in the red zone when they are throwing at times. So we'll go with that. First Syracuse touchdown here. Sean Tucker minus 110, Schrader run plus 150, Damian Alford plus 600, Quealy and Jackson each at 650 apiece, and then other or a defensive touchdown at 700. Where are you going here?
Well, we didn't lay out the records, but since I am so far behind, I'm going to continue to go for these Hail Marys. This is where I could actually maybe somehow make this a contest if I were to miraculously hit one of these. I'm just torn on which receiver to throw a dart at. I'll say Damian Alford plus 600 because he's gotten one of those long touchdowns and they looked for him early in that Liberty game. Maybe they just try and go deep and out of a bye week, they have a play dialed up for him against a secondary that is down one of their top corners and is vulnerable to giving up a big play.
Not a bad call there. I'm just going to kind of stick with what I know here. I am going to go with, again, it's the torn between Tucker and Schrader run because it feels like you're splitting hairs here, 50-50. I'll go with the value. I'll take the Schrader run at plus 150. All right, let's get to Anthony Debundo. Time for some numbers. We've given you some numbers. He's got better numbers, and that's why we bring him on here every single show on our preview segments here. He's not going to be with us tomorrow on the show for Drexel. Just not enough fun stuff with Drexel. There's more fun stuff with Louisville. So we'll do that right now. It's time for Debundo's Digits.
The numbers you need to know. Anthony Debundo breaks down the biggest stats for this week's Syracuse matchup. Everybody! Debundo's Digits. If you ain't taking stats, kick the out the class. On the Locked On Syracuse Podcast.
Where you at? Let's go. The hunt for the 13th game and football in December is underway. The Orange have 3 chances to find one win, and the best one comes Saturday in Louisville, a place where the Orange have had extremely little success. The Orange have lost 6 consecutive trips to Louisville. Most of them have not been close. Last season's 30-0 defeat felt like the low point of a lost year, but the Orange could win their first game since 2007 in Louisville on Saturday and clinch the second bowl trip in 6 years under Gino Babers. Let's get into how they might do that. The first stat that jumps off the page for the Cardinals offense is explosiveness. They can break a big play from anywhere. They rank 10th in the nation in explosiveness. Fortunately for the SU defense, the Orange ranks 7th defensively in explosiveness allowed. Should be able to limit some of the big plays, but they will be tested. And that's what's driven the Cardinals offense all year. They're pretty boom or bust on the ground. They rank just 90th in rushing success rate, but 9th in explosiveness. So a lot of big play potential, but tend to struggle consistently grind out yards on the ground. The passing offense has been much more consistent overall, where the Cardinals are top 40 in both play-to-play efficiency and explosiveness overall. The Orange's secondary will certainly be tested to match the speed that the entire Cardinals offense has across the board. The Orange defense 6th in allowing big plays through the air, but Louisville will still make that very difficult for the secondary. When we flip to the other side of the ball, the weaknesses are shown in this Cardinal team. There's two really big ones: explosiveness and finishing drives. The Cardinals rank 124th, 6th worst in explosiveness allowed. That's a ton of big plays, and it's pretty similar to the BC run defense in the sense that they're pretty good on a play-to-play basis, but they do allow a lot of big runs. So hopefully Dino Babers continues to run. We see less short Garrett Schrader throws like in the first half against Boston College a couple weeks ago. In lieu of short passes, the Orange need to look for big chunk plays through the air. Louisville's pass defense has a significant success rate edge against the Orange's passing attack. They're pretty good play-to-play, but they do allow a lot of big plays. They're 103rd in passing explosiveness allowed. They also rank poorly in PFF's coverage grades. There's some weaknesses to be exploited here. And the second area of weakness besides explosiveness is finishing drives defense. The Cardinals allow a lot of touchdowns once teams cross the 40 on them. They rank 113th in finishing drives defense. That's why Dino needs to stay aggressive on 4th down, especially in Cardinal territory. Lean on the run game, wait for the big plays that will come, and go boom or bust through the air by looking for some deep shots against a vulnerable secondary to the big play. Overall, the advanced metrics don't see Louisville as particularly better than the Orange. SP Plus ranks Syracuse 56th, 11 spots behind Louisville, so a slight edge to Louisville here. Their projection makes the game 4.2. Our own Action Network power ratings have the Orange 52nd, 9 spots behind the Cardinals. Our projection is 3.6. This is basically a must-win for the Cardinals if they want to make a bowl game too, so it has the potential of another cardiac Cuse kind of game. There's not a ton of huge edges for the Cardinals in this one besides history. I think Syracuse has a good shot to pull this one out. It's going to be another toss-up down to the wire and really could come down to who finds the big plays. It's all about big plays Saturday in Louisville.
Our thanks, as always, to Anthony Debundo for hopping on with us, giving us all the numbers we need to know. And he is, I would say, a little more optimistic Syracuse can pull this out than he has been in the past. But we'll see how all that shakes out here. Just from what we hear in the digits, what we hear in the text chain between the three of us, those are just my gut feelings on how he feels about this upcoming game. All right, so our thanks as always to Anthony Debundo from the Action Network. Check him out at Anthony Debundo on Twitter. Coming up next, we're going to pick the game, spread, total, all that fun stuff. That is coming up next. But first, let me tell you about BetOnline.ag. They're back and better than ever with a new web interface for the start of the basketball season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. So head on over to their new updated website on desktop or on your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus. All you got to do is punch in our promo code LOCKEDON to receive that bonus. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, BetOnline's catching up. They know everything's 3 with this team, and that's where they're setting the line once again. So Syracuse, a 3-point underdog heading into this contest. The over-under set at 56 here. Let's start with the spread. 3. It feels like the right number in this game. I know they say 3 points is what you give for home field. I think in college it's more like 4 or 5. So I think the odds makers here at BetOnline.ag view Louisville as a slightly better team right now than Syracuse. Just pretty much by like a point, half a point, essentially. But where are you sitting right now on this line of 3?
Well, it's interesting, too, because Syracuse is 8-1 against the spread. So I feel like if anything now, they're just getting a lot more respect because even pro bettors, I'm sure, are starting to identify a trend there. I'm pretty torn. I would say this is like a pass for me. I don't have a hard lean one way or the other. If I am and I have to pick like on the prop shop here, I think I will pick Syracuse because I think they have just as good of a chance as winning the game as Louisville does. And I'm getting the 3 points there that I do think it's going to be a close game. And I think there's some real potential here that Louisville ekes out a close one, given that they have really even been bitten more than Syracuse in terms of their fourth quarter collapses. So they've lost 4 of their last 5. And in their last 3 losses specifically, they've been outscored in the fourth quarter 55-6. And really just ACC play as a whole, they've been outscored in the fourth quarter 75-30. So I think there's some potential here, kind of like Syracuse going into Virginia Tech, where it's like, oh, all these bad losses, they're due for one to go their way. That scares me a little bit. But Syracuse is coming off a bye, so I'll lean with them.
I'm going to go Louisville here. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a one-possession game. I don't know if it's going to get inside of 3. It's going to be one of those games, I think, where it might be a 4 or 6 point win for one side, but it'll feel more like 3 or less. That's my gut feeling heading into this game. I'm going to go with Louisville here. I think they want the win. I mean, I know Syracuse wants the win, but Dino Babers has struggled off the bye and pulling off some of these victories. So I'll roll with Louisville here in the 3. I think Malik Cunningham also will pose some problems for the Syracuse defense too. Then the over-under set at 56 in this one. We said Syracuse 8-1 against the spread. The over-unders are pretty much even here, 5-4 with the under getting the 5 there. So where are you sitting on this total of 56? Who would have thought heading into the season we'd be looking at a total with a Syracuse game north of like 55 at any point this season?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because some of these I felt like the unders the play. I think about that Virginia Tech game, and then Syracuse went out and scored 40 plus in regulation in that game. So they really have put up points. I will say, though, one thing that makes me lean towards the under here is the fact that both of these teams like to run the football, like to, hold possession, drain clock. Syracuse right now, 32nd in time of possession. Louisville is a little bit better than them, even at 22nd. So the fact that I think we will see ground attacks and teams that are just sort of like methodically getting into the game here, I will take the slight under, but I also don't really love that number as well, because if this is a close game, usually that favors the over. And usually when teams are kind of going back and forth late and still trying to compete for points, then you lean more towards the over. And if there was a way to like tease on BetOnline.ag, which I don't know if there is, and you could get Syracuse at like plus 10 and then the over under to up to like 65 or something, like I would be all over that. Yeah. I just don't know if I think the game's going to be close. I just don't know if they actually cover the 3, and I don't know if they actually stay under 56.
Right. Again, I think our financial advice, I don't know if it's sound financial advice or not, but our financial advice for this game is stay away. It's not like what we were talking about when we were previewing Lafayette, where we love the over, and the over ended up hitting. But I would stay away from this line as well. I'll go over, just because there could be overtime potential here too.
Yeah.
And that could push it over the top, just because I do think it's going to have that sort of close game feel here. So I'm going to go with the over on this number of 56. All right. That is going to do it for us here on this preview edition. We'll be back with another preview. Again, you may be thinking Thursday, you're getting a football preview. Why is that? That's because we're going to be back in just a little bit and talking all things about Drexel getting you ready for hoops, because it's the double dip. So go to PrizePicks and maybe play with a little double dipper on college basketball and college football. So we'll be back in just a little bit talking all things Drexel with you, getting you ready for that game. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. Even if you're subscribed to us on places like Apple or Spotify, hit us up on YouTube. We're aiming for 250 before kickoff on the subscribers. So help us out in that department right there. For Tim, I'm Tyler. We'll talk to you guys with some basketball in just